You didn't know? Your ass better call somebody!
My guy Big T, and I posted it right on the screen to make sure it was up there right when we got on. But if you can't see that, it says $75,000. This build, he pretty much gave it out on the show. He loved Tutu. He said Hurts was close to a lock. Zacchaeus, Cheapy, Wilcox, Cheapy, and then he had the two studs. He loved Chase, A.J. Brown with Chase. I mean, he gave this build out on the show. So if you watch the show, you probably did a pretty good job if you followed my guy Big T.
So now you got Hurts, Mixon, Chase, Devontae, or A.J. That puts you at 3K. That's the two-punt build where you play OZ.
Has his man, that is Zacchaeus.
And one of our Bengals guys. You could ship with 2 threes in your team. You really could because of these guys. And then what happens when OZ gets a touchdown? He houses one.
Time runs out. Touchdown.
You're going to win $500K tonight.
Zacchaeus.
Everyone goes through cold streaks, and everyone knows this, but the people that keep going, the people that keep playing, they're always playing. They don't let it affect them. That's what happens. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another weekend review show here on a Tuesday. And I got my man, Third and Schlong, with me, Bryce. I'll bring him in here in a second. Make sure you guys hit the like button. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe as we got free shows all throughout the week. If you're playing MLB today, I know there's a 4-game slate, and we will have a free live show on this YouTube channel a little bit later, 2 p.m. Eastern time, going up to lock. First game locks at 3 p.m. Eastern time with the crew, DC, Big T, and Holden. Will be taking you through the MLB slate. So I'll just tell you right now, my guy Big T, playoff baseball, he does really well with playoff baseball. So definitely want to listen to that show. If you're into the baseball street still and you're still grinding that, make sure you guys tune in 2 p.m. Eastern time. That show will take place here. But I'll bring in my co-host, Third and Schlong, Bryce. What's going on with you, man? How are you on a Tuesday morning?
I'm wonderful. Little jet lagged. I was at a wedding this weekend in Utah, and I hate traveling during football. I try and avoid it at absolutely all costs, but Utah's a beautiful place. It was relaxing. I personally had a good weekend. So all good. My travel situation yesterday was just totally screwed. I didn't get back to my house until like 2 a.m. So
yeah, it sounds like you tried to sleep in a little bit, but I know how you feel. When you get jet lagged like that and then your flights get delayed and you get in later than you're thinking you were going to get in, it just throws you all off, right? It just completely throws everything off.
Yeah. Well, like our first flight was going to have we were going to have like 20 minutes in the airport to make our connection, and we had to switch terminals, and you couldn't like walk from terminal to terminal. You had to take a shuttle. And I'm like, I'm not risking it on the shuttle. So we basically canceled that flight, and then we got a different one. And this was after our original flight had already gotten canceled. So that was fun. Traveling's kind of a mess right now, but I'm glad to be back home. I was able to sleep in. I feel wonderful. We had a good weekend. We got some playoff baseball tonight. We got some Champions League soccer. So it's pretty good midweek as opposed to what it normally is during football.
Yeah, speaking of the soccer streets, there were some winners in the soccer streets. I'm sure there'll be more bets for soccer today. If you're not a part of the Run Pure Sports bet package, you might want to get subscribed to the bet package because guys have been on fire. JBC stats, I know stats hit a 13-1 NASCAR winner over the weekend. JBC went 5-0 on Sunday with the premium plays. Those are his 5 favorite plays. Well, him, stats, Big T, but I'm pretty sure those 5 plays were JBC on Sunday, and those were his 5 favorite plays for the premium subs. They all hit 5-0 on Sunday, and then he comes back yesterday. The one premium play, because there wasn't much going on outside of Monday Night Football, was Seattle -2.5. That obviously worked out pretty well if you were on Seattle, and that smashed. So I'll just say JBC's been on a little hot streak betting. Big T's been on a nice hot streak DFS wise. We're hitting on all cylinders right now at Run Pure Sports. So this is the time. Get on now. We got 21 days or something like that till NBA starts. And you guys know what that means for us because we crush NBA. And the team is going to be even better this year because of who we added. So you might want to make sure you get a part of not just the bets, but the DFS side. If you're not a part, get them both. SaberSim, if you want an optimizer, SaberSim's been crushing as well. So make sure you guys check out what we got going on here. And I'm sure, make sure you get those premium plays ready because they've been hot. And there's baseball winners to be had for playoffs. So we'll have some good plays over there. Bryce, we got to start with yesterday because for one, I can't I want to not talk about it because it was the first time, and I can't remember how long, that I watched a sport and came away saying I wasted 3 hours of my time watching that game. I swear to God, it's like the first time in my life I ever thought that I wasted my time watching that game because that might have been the worst loss that I've seen a team take in a while. And I know they got killed by the Cowboys, and you're going to say, JSU, they lost 40-0 or 40 to whatever to the Cowboys. That has to be the worst loss. No, at least the Cowboys have a dominant defense, and they are probably one of the better teams in football. They lost to a middling to low Seattle team who Carolina just put up points on, and they got destroyed by this Seattle team in New York. I don't even know what to say, but it was a tough watch for me yesterday, to say the least.
So I watched that basically the entire game on my flight, and I'm not sure there's anything that could make a flight go by slower if you're not sleeping on it. And somehow an NFL football game managed to do that to me. And I was so fucking tilted just because, I'm just sitting there on the flight. I'm just switching tabs to see when the flight's going to land. So I could just stop watching this damn game because there was literally nothing else to do. DFS for me yesterday, I just maxed everything. I wasn't going to max anything at all. And then, my flights got so messed up, so I'm able to play. And then it ends up just being some trained defense captain team wins that I'm never going to get. So that sucked. The only good thing was I did bet Mark's 2.5 Seattle play. So that made up, I think, for pretty much all of my DFS losses. So it ended up being a wash. And just
see, that's why you got to get the bet side. You got to get the bet side. You parlay it. Some days you might have a better bets day than a DFS day, but it makes it better when you come out okay, I had a bad day DFS wise, but I won betting wise. So it almost washed out.
Yeah, I lost 2K on the GPPs and I won 2K betting on it. So that was a nice little wash. And as you said it perfectly, it ended up being a complete waste of time. I came out, I think, about $100 negative on the slate. So that was just a complete waste of time. But
I was with you where the betting made up for the fact that DFS was just a wash. You know what I mean? Just got killed. And so I ended up $500 negative for the day just because of the betting side of it. Obviously, 2.5. We hit the 2.5 real nice like you. I had 1K on that. And then I had a few different props that actually hit too. Zach Charbonnet over, I think it was 23.5 yards. I had a decent amount on. So I hit big there. And there was one other prop.
Mangone hit his play. I think it was Daniel Jones over.
Jones over the rushing yards. Yes, that was another prop. So we had a good day over, at least from the betting side. But DFS, at least one of our members, I think his username is Phil's 44 on DraftKings. One of our members did have the winner, the optimal. Last night at least. So he hit for 40K. So shout out to him, Phil's 44. If you're watching, 40K richer. And the team was, I don't know if you didn't see the team, it was the defense at captain. And then it was all the studs, right? Kenneth Walker, Geno Smith, Daniel Jones, DK Metcalf. And then it had the one other cheapie, Wan'Dale Robinson, who, did really good for that slate. 9-7 at 3K on that type of slate where nobody was scoring, there was barely any points. that's going to get it done for you. So, yeah, it's, obviously if you're like, Bryce or like defensive captains, I don't really play a ton of defensive captain builds. So like, I'm probably not getting there when that happens, but I would assume that some people thought that the Giants were just bad and Daniel Jones sucked. And so it wasn't crazy to me on this slate to play one of them. I'll just say
if you look at the ownership, it was like 1%. Like you can see a defensive captain getting there at 1%. Typically they come in higher, and I think they're awful plays.
I thought Seattle was going to come in higher, Brett. Like I thought Seattle was 12% in the flex. I thought they were going to be like 20 plus, honestly, just because they were projecting decent, in my opinion. Maybe people were just lowering them. I don't know.
I mean, they were a little expensive, but
they were.
I mean, for a defense, but yeah, I mean, at that percentage, I think I was over their defense and flex. I just didn't play any at captain. If I had snuck a captain or two team in there, I might have been able to hit that just because it was such like a obvious chalky build if you're playing them at captain. But
yeah, I mean, it's four studs with one cheapie. If you got the one cheapie correct in Wandell, which I don't know about you, but I had Wandell and Hyatt projected ahead of pretty much all of the other Giants receivers. So like I had a bunch of them. I just didn't have any defense, obviously.
Yeah, I had it Slayton first, and then I had Wandale after him. And then I think you
might have been there, honestly.
And then Hyatt. Yeah.
You might have been there. So
yeah, I mean it was close. But not really close. I mean, if I would have played defense captain, it would have been close.
Yeah, it's just if you would have played them. Yeah. I guess that comes down to like sometimes not taking them out of the pool and letting it run, and maybe that one team hits in captain, and maybe it is that team.
Yeah, I don't mind like taking players. Like I think I had 6 players that ended up being captain last night, but like if I get some teams of guys I haven't excluded, I'll just do like my favorite players and not exclude defenses in general. And like if a couple defense teams sneak in, I like the build, I'll just let it roll sometimes just because you can get really weird games. I just excluded them because I thought they would be like, 3 to 5% at captain, which I would not want, but they were like 1%. So
I mean I'll be honest, I thought Daniel Jones was
would have been over.
I thought Daniel Jones was going to score on this Seattle defense a little bit. I'll be honest. Like
the Seattle defense is awful. I mean, at some point, like
they had Aikman. Aikman was comparing dudes to Deion Sanders. I don't know if you heard that on the broadcast. I'm sitting there and I'm like,
I was watching the Manning cast. I watched with the dude next to me on the plane.
Oh my God! Troy Aikman literally compared. Was it Witherspoon? I forget who. It might have been Witherspoon. To freaking Deion Stage, like 21. You know who he reminds me of? Another 21. Deion. Like I was like, are you fucking kidding me right now? Like stop it. Like this is ridiculous that we have to listen to this shit. Like there's nothing else you can talk about than friggin' comparing guys to like the greatest ever because they had like a good game or something like that. And I'm not saying he's bad. He's just as horrible.
I love the Manning cast. I watch them whenever they're on. I think it's kind of funny. Like they had Will Ferrell on for most of the first half.
I saw some of that. I thought that was hilarious.
And I mean, I guess Will Ferrell's friends with Pete Carroll's that led to some interesting content. But yeah, I mean, it's just something different. Like I watch so much football throughout the season that like when you have like what I think to be like a cool like alternative broadcast, I'll always watch that one.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. Some of the things I go back and forth on it sometimes, but you like the like non-hosted kind of like off the cuff type.
It depends. I think Eli and Peyton do a really good job with it. I think like some of the alternative broadcasts I don't really care for, but I also don't like Aikman as an announcer.
I hate Aikman.
Yeah, as an announcer in general. Like so. Yeah, I typically watch the Manning cast when it's on, but
yeah, it's fair enough. We got Big T in chat says the Manning cast is goated. It is. I mean, they do a great job for them not really having much like, hosting experience or anything like that, and them just kind of shooting it and kind of off the cuff the way they do it. I don't think many could do that, right? Like I don't think many could do it.
And they have a really good rapport with all their guests. It's like they know all like these fairly famous people pretty well. Peyton and Will Ferrell are in a movie coming up, and they were comparing Will Ferrell to like DK Metcalf's like body because I forget why, and he scored a touchdown like immediately after, and like they had called it, and it was funny. But I mean, it was a shitty game. At least we hit the bet side. Glad one of the members was able to get there. I don't think you probably did well with my cash content just because I'd captained Daniel Jones both sites. He was pretty easy to get running quarterback.
He was getting pushed hard in the optos too. Like
well, I mean, dude, he could have gotten there. Like if he scores on the 5-yard line instead of throwing the pick six, like that's such a massive swing. And like the game totally turned on that play. Like they weren't totally out of it until then. Like they would have been down.
Who knows if they score on that play, they might have scored again. Like you don't know how that could have spiraled into confidence building. And he was clearly dejected, right? Like let's be honest. Like after that pick, like it was just like it was over. They
just like get me the fuck out of here. It was
correct.
Just end this game and move on to the next one.
I thought the other interesting thing was I thought Kenneth Walker was going to be like a little lower owned in the captain, and he came in as the second highest captain of Daniel Jones. So I mean, I thought that was interesting as well.
I thought he was extremely overpriced. I think I had DK Metcalf. I had like 30% of Metcalf at captain in GPPs. That was my favorite GPP captain.
Yeah, I had 20% Metcalf and like 30% Lockett. I just like the passing game. I really like the passing game. I thought the Giants would score, and then I thought that Seattle would have to like pass more and score, and that obviously didn't happen. And there were flags everywhere. It was just a horrible game. Like the first half was awful.
Made it 10 times worse.
Because the guy was 1 yard past the line of like downfield than he could be. So like it had nothing to do with the play either.
They normally give him like more leeway on that stuff.
Yeah.
Like it has to be like egregious for them to call it.
And there was like 10 holding calls in the first quarter. It was just it was really tough to watch. This is why it was so tough for me to watch the actual football game. So, but any other games, like any takeaways from any of the other games on Sundays? Maybe a good game that you watched on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, I had some good teams. I mean, take away McCaffrey's the best player in football. That was never up for debate. I mean, as long as Elijah Mitchell's out too, like that's kind of what got, I mean, we'll talk about this soon, but that's kind of what like made him a stone lock for me. Like, cause if he's playing Arizona and Elijah Mitchell's in there, like you could easily see them splitting reps a lot more. And he ended up being the player you really needed in cash. In terms of games, I think the Bears could just totally tank and have the first and the second pick in the draft because they have Carolina's pick. How
sick would it be if they got Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison? Like just 1-2. Like that would be so sick. I don't know if they do that, but like
I mean I would.
I would too, honestly.
I like Drake May a lot too.
Okay.
I think he's I think the first three picks should be Caleb Williams, him, and Marvin Harrison. I mean, this is a great draft to have all these picks in.
Yeah, and who knows? They really do have a good shot at 1 and 2. Like the way it's set up.
Bryce Young is awful, and I don't know. Imagine choosing a little midget over. I mean, you and I are both short guys, but over fucking Anthony Richardson and C.J. Stroud.
I can't
these guys
believe C.J. Stroud. They didn't pick him. C.J. Stroud over him. Yeah. I get Anthony Richardson just because he's so raw. He was so raw. Physically, he wasn't right. When you look at him, he's physically almost like imposing for a quarterback because he's so big. Massive. But C.J. Stroud, man, that's going to be a huge whiff because he looks legit, and Bryce Young looks literally horrible. I mean, Andy Dalton made it even worse when he came in that the week before.
And he was competent.
And looked fine. So like, and they're going to keep trotting him out there though, Bryce. So that's good for the Bears, right? Because they're going to keep playing Bryce Young, and that's huge for the Bears because they got their pick. So hopefully they do just suck and the Bears get both picks and see what they do with Justin Fields. Even if they can't get a lot for Fields, get something for Fields maybe and move on.
I think you can get a
don't know.
decent amount for Fields. I mean, I think the Bears coach, Eberflus or whatever, he could be the worst coach in football. That guy's a stone idiot. Justin Fields only had three runs the entire game. That should never happen.
I don't even understand how a coach can be like, okay, so the best thing about his biggest asset is his legs, like his running ability. That's what defenses are going to be terrified of. Let's take that away. Let's just not use his legs, even though that's his best asset, and let's just make him a prototypical pocket passer, keep him in the pocket, not roll him out more. It literally makes no sense. Like, don't use your best weapon or the weapon that defenses are terrified of. Right? Let's not do that. So that makes a ton of sense. That's like that. Think about this. That's like rolling Tom Brady out of the pocket every single time. Tom, you're the best pocket passer of all time. We're going to move you out of the pocket. Let's just do that. What are you thinking? Like, it's the stupidest thing ever what they're doing over there. And that loss was horrible to the Broncos because the Broncos suck. And the fact that they let them come back was, wow, that's a tough scene for the Broncos. I saw Big T put in plus 470 live. That's another reason to get the bets package. Live betting, plus 470. I know a few people hit that. I hit that too. So appreciate Big T for that winner. But the Bears suck. Broncos are almost as bad as the Bears. I think that's clear. They're pretty much up there. And I didn't think their defense would be as bad this year. That's one thing I definitely whiffed on. I did not think that the defense would be as bad for the Broncos.
They're going to play shootouts all year.
Because Russ, everyone makes fun of, like, Russ is not it. I thought he would run more too. He's not. But, like, he's going to move the ball a little bit. And so, like, teams that just aren't, like, dominant, like Miami and Buffalo, when they play the lesser teams that aren't like Miami, Buffalo, and those, like, high friggin' awesome offenses, and they're just like the middle offenses, they're going to score and at least have shootout games. So definitely something to keep an eye on for fantasy. And let's kind of roll that into the cash teams, because I do want to talk about FanDuel, and I'll bring it up here on the screen in a second. I saw Javonte Williams was like a cash lock for everyone. He was 100% owned in cash games on FanDuel, and I would assume that's a ton of pricing first on FanDuel. He was like 5,800, and then matchup second. You had like the nut scenario of cheap price, best matchup. So kind of talk about cash as I get it up on the screen for FanDuel specifically.
So for FanDuel, I was my DraftKings team was insanely on market, and you'll see it's trained a ton. On FanDuel, I really like this team actually. To me, it came down to Justin Fields or Anthony Richardson. I wasn't playing anyone else. There was no need to drop down all the way to like a minimum price quarterback when you have Justin Fields at 7.2K. Minimum price is 6, and you got Anthony Richardson at 7.6. I did look at some Josh Allen builds, but I thought the salary was simply too hard to get there because I didn't love the mid-tier receivers. And as I said in chat and on the charts, McCaffrey was an absolute must for me this weekend. Just a combination of Elijah Mitchell being out and the matchup. It was too good to pass up. Javonte Williams ended up being a stone lock for me as well. He was simply too cheap in a great matchup. You saw Jordan McLaughlin had a really good game, and those would have been the snaps that Williams would have gotten. So in retrospect, I would have played that 100%. I think my two mistakes here might have been Chase and Adams. Michael Thomas, I didn't love. He just kind of fit with this build. I think not playing Puka for me was a mistake. His target share is just too high. I mean, he ran really well to get a touchdown to end the game, which made it like a great game on FanDuel. His touchdown equity is just not great in general in that offense. So he wasn't a lock for me on FanDuel. He was on my second team that I almost played.
I think, Bryce, one of the interesting things is that we've been doing these review shows now. What is this, week 4? And, most of your cash teams don't pair quarterbacks with anyone on the run back. And your FanDuel team, And I want to talk about this. Cole Kmet, who I loved, I just want to be clear, he was one of my favorite tight ends of the week. You did actually pair him with a Justin Fields, a runner in Justin Fields, someone who, like, I think a lot of people in tournaments would say, like, you don't have to pair him. You could play him naked if you wanted to, but you can obviously pair him too. So kind of talk about that a little bit. Did you love the matchup? Was he too cheap on FanDuel, like your favorite cheap tight end? How'd you get to that pairing, since you've talked about how you don't look for, quarterback, wide receiver, or tight end combos to pair?
It was kind of, for me, it was kind of a combination of all the above. I loved the Bears matchup. I really thought that game would shoot out. I wanted exposure to it. Cole Kmet, he was simply too cheap for me on FanDuel. Like, he was up to like 4K on DraftKings. I mean, preseason, this guy was one of the most hyped tight ends coming into the season. I mean, the talent is there as long as the Bears offense was able to turn it around. And a bet on Justin Fields is essentially betting on the Bears offense to turn it around. The tight end position, it was probably the worst position ever on FanDuel this weekend. Your number one tight end was George Kittle, who I always hate playing in cash just because he's super variable. Like, he'll get games where we'll have 150 and 2 touchdowns, and he'll get games where he has like 4 points. So he wasn't really – I was always paying down. Mark Andrews had a really ugly matchup against the Browns. He ended up having a good game, but he wasn't really in my cash pool. So it was always paying down for me. And my favorite one, I mean, I couldn't imagine playing Chigakonkwo over Cole Kmet, just for me personally.
I couldn't imagine playing Chig, period.
Yeah, I know, like, there were some builds where Chig was cheaper. So there were some builds where you needed the money. I landed on a build where I did not need the money, and I could have played Cole. I think a 2v2 I looked at was Zay Flowers without all the Ravens receivers, and Chig over Michael Thomas and Kmet. Michael Thomas was a play I did not really want to play. I just absolutely loved the rest of this team. In retrospect, if I had to go back and do it again, I would 100% play Puka over Devontae. The quarterback downgrade. I mean, granted, Devontae did have 13 targets in the second half.
Granted, he had a touchdown.
Yeah,
that was clear. Okay,
that would have made me a lot of money because I could have done well in like tournaments, like the higher dollar tournaments. I mean, Josh McDaniels runs a hurry up when the guy's clearly in the end zone.
I don't even understand it though, Bryce. Like, if you're a ref,
it was the most obvious touchdown.
I'm watching the game, and I got 5 games going on, and I'm watching it in the corner of my eye, and I see it, and I go, "Oh, that's a touchdown." How the hell can referees that are literally right there, and that's their job?
He's on the goal line to see if you can't get in. I mean,
I say if it's that close, you call it a touchdown, and then they just have it reviewed. I don't understand how it's not that way, because that could have been a huge. Well, what if that was a huge game? Like, whenever it's that close, they should always just call touchdown.
I mean, that was a pretty big game for the Chargers. I mean, the Chargers really needed to win that. They're 1-2 and playing a division game against an opponent that they should beat. Against a backup QB they should beat.
And they almost let them back in.
On their
just
part,
throwing that out.
Blowing it. I played Aiden O'Connell on DraftKings, and I was on Devonta Adams on FanDuel, so that was an extremely tilting moment. Thankfully, the team still got there. But, yeah, the absolute nuts on this team, and I really did look at this for a second, was Puka and Diggs over Chase and Adams. And this team would have been cooking with absolute gas, even with these shitty running back scores. I know I mentioned to you that I was never playing Josh Kelly again. He just kind of fit the builds. He was minus 130 to score a touchdown. I mean, he got 17 carries. He has little to no passing game role when he plays. They use Spiller and other guys in it, but that's not a massive worry for me if you have like a really good like touchdown prop on FanDuel. His snap share was down yesterday or 2 days ago. I'm really hoping I just never have to deal with this guy again. He wasn't unplayed.
Hopefully Eckler comes back.
Yeah, hopefully Eckler comes back, and then the Chargers, I mean, Herbert ran 2 in.
Yep.
I played Chargers on DraftKings just because they were way cheaper there. Like FanDuel did a good job of pricing them up in general. So they weren't like, I'm not playing Keenan Allen at 9.6K. That's just not something I'm ever going to do. I don't care if he's the only player on the field. It's really hard for me to play him over like a Tyreek or a Justin Jefferson at the same price, or even a Diggs. But yeah, another takeaway, the Bengals could have the worst offense in football. Their offensive line is atrocious. They cannot block for Joe
I'm going to
Burrow.
call you out on this. Giants or Bengals?
God, the offensive line, probably the Giants, just because Daniel Jones can move and he's still getting sacked. Joe Burrow just can't move right now. Like he's clearly not 100% healthy.
Clearly,
so,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that just led to, like, kind of last week, just a lot of quick throws to Chase. I thought he was a really strong play in a Tennessee defense that's turned super pass funnel. They're so good against the run, and you can beat them through the air. So I really like getting to the Ravens defense on this build. The other defense I looked at was I like the Rams for cheap if I needed it, but I thought it was worth it to find the 500. I normally don't let defense make or break a team, but it wasn't that hard to get to 500, and I really like the Ravens defense against what I consider to be an insanely below average NFL quarterback making his first start, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who was actually in play on DraftKings just because he runs a bit, but I ended up going with Aiden O'Connell. I just thought the Ravens game was going to be a piece of shit game, and it was.
Yeah, it was a bad game. It was just a bad game. I think the target. Yeah. And listen, Aiden O'Connell, we'll get to DraftKings, but like you take that Josh Jacobs touchdown away and you give it to Devontae Adams because it was a touchdown, and you give him that passing touchdown. I mean, he's fine. He's 4K.
He gets it.
Like,
he gets there.
Yeah.
I mean, if he gets 15 points at 4K, you're on a slate where you really want the money. I thought Aiden O'Connell was a stone lock for me. I mean, with their team total, they even gave him like the tush push plays. Like they ran it on 3rd and 4th down sometimes. So, I mean, he had the running upside a bit. I mean, it's always a tough spot when a guy's making his first NFL start, but he was really good in preseason. He has some decent receivers like Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers. He ended up they couldn't block Khalil Mack, and he was so scared by the end of the game that he was just checking it down every time. So the game also had a super high total. Like the total was 49. So, a quarterback trailing in that game script can normally get there, and, you give him another 4 points and he's there on DraftKings. So yeah, that was kind of an expensive touchdown, but as you can see, I had a good day on FanDuel. Won every cash game and cash tournaments. Would have needed Williams not to get hurt or to have the better receiver pairing of Puka and Diggs over Chase and Adams to have a bigger day. Overall, I was pretty happy with how I played. I would say not playing Puka was a mistake over Adams with the quarterback downgrade. They just didn't use Adams at all in the first half, and he was hurt. So when he got hurt, I needed like 2 points from him, as you could see on that team. So when he got hurt, I was on massive tilt. I thought he like separated his shoulder and was done.
I mean, it looked like he was done.
Yeah,
and
100%.
He toughed it out for sure for you, because it looked like he was holding his arm, walking off the field. It looked like he was, out of the game for sure. And who knows how long. And he came back in and actually like got peppered at the end too, which probably helped save you for sure. So that's you always love the fight with those stud guys.
Well, I had the slate one until Puka scored in overtime, because as you could see, Puka was 75% there. But I mean, I had Puka on DraftKings. I thought he was a stone lock with the volume that he gets at 6,700 here. I had Kyron Williams. These Rams guys really, I mean, I basically had 3 good players and then a bunch of shit. But the 3 players I had were so good enough that they propelled me to a win. You can see, and this is the $1,000 double up. 30 people, top 15 paid. Look how many people had this team. Over about half the field had this team. To me, it was just a pretty obvious build in cash. If you're willing to play Aiden O'Connell, and I was, my quarterback before the Aiden O'Connell news was Russell Wilson, and I think that team would have done slightly better. To me, on DraftKings, Kyron Williams was an absolute lock at 6K. He's simply way too cheap for the role that he gets in the passing game and the running game. He gets all the goal line carries. He gets all the 2-minute work. It's just a nut roll on DraftKings. Keenan Allen at 7,900 was an absolute lock for me. DraftKings, as you can see, Josh Palmer at 4K on FanDuel, he was up to 6-1. Keenan Allen was up to, I think, 9-4 or 9-6 on FanDuel.
Yeah, it was a big difference.
Those two and Puka, I mean, I was pretty set in playing all three of those receivers, Kyron Williams and McCaffrey. So it came down to running back, 2, tight end, defense, and quarterback. And I would have preferred the Ravens defense over the Browns. The 2v2 I looked at and would have been the only other team I would have considered playing here was the Ravens defense and Javonte Williams over Zach Moss and the Browns defense. I think Javonte has a good passing game role. Zach Moss not having a passing game role with Anthony Richardson was slightly worrisome to me coming into the game. But, I mean, he's still got an insane amount of carries. I think the Javonte Williams Ravens side would have been better here. I'm just not sure if Moss is going to be worth it if Anthony Richardson is literally never going to throw to him. I mean, it hurts his touchdown equity and it hurts his equity in the passing game from Minshew to Richardson.
And it takes away like some of his rushing upside in the goal line.
It hurts his touchdown equity for sure.
For sure.
And it hurts.
I think it's interesting. Equity. So like you can tell in this build, like you thought Herbert was probably a really good play, but he was too expensive when you got a 4K quarterback. So how do you combat that? You get 2 of Herbert's receivers. So you're like, okay, if Herbert goes off, I at least have good exposure to his side. Even though you're not playing the other side, that's a way for you to get both sides of a game without really worrying about like game stacking and too much correlation. You're just these guys are too cheap.
And it was pretty cheap. Like you got a quarterback and receiver for 8K combined, and then you have, one of the best receivers on the slate for 7.9K. The touchdown would have really helped. The Devontae Adams touchdown would have really helped this team. Josh Palmer catching a bomb at the end really did help. Some people played Thielen over him for 500 more and then dropped Moss to Javonte Williams. That was another team that people looked at. I don't think I was ever not playing Palmer for 4K. Thielen would have been on my team if Andy Dalton was playing, but I wanted nothing to do with him with Bryce Young at quarterback personally. Pat Freiermuth, A, Pittsburgh was pathetic. B, he got hurt. He's probably out for an extended time. That injury did not look great. I guess you could have considered Jake Ferguson over him. I mean, this is just really cheap for who I consider to be like one of the better tight ends in football. And, without Deontay Johnson.
That offense sucks. And Kenny Pickett's been horrible.
I mean, they're god awful. I mean, Kenny Pickett at least looked competent against the Raiders. It's not like the Texans have like a bang up defense and, they've been scoring. I thought that Pittsburgh could score some points. That was obviously wrong.
Texans look good, man. Texans look pretty good, honestly.
Well, like both CJ Stroud was good.
I'll give them credit too. Texans lost a ton of offensive linemen.
And they're getting them back too. They're getting them back next week.
They will get them back, but they were out Tunsil too, the left tackle. And so everyone's saying, oh, Pittsburgh can't block anyone either. Their offensive line's terrible. Well, look at what the Texans are doing, and they've lost a ton of offensive linemen to start the year. So, like, CJ Stroud is still doing stuff. There's ways for you to, figure out around a bad offensive line, and they're doing it there. And CJ Stroud looks good. The defense looks better than I think anyone thought, honestly, to start the year. But, yeah, I think that's one interesting thing to pull away from it. Back to Javonte Williams, and everyone knows that I'm like the biggest Javonte Williams fan there is. I wasn't really high on him yesterday, and he just doesn't look right. Like, I get what you're saying. Like, it's the Bears. He got hurt. He definitely would have done better than what he get, like 3 points or whatever. Like, he definitely would have done better.
And he got
than
hurt
that, obviously.
early too.
He got hurt early, but something looks off. Like, something just looks off. Like, I don't know if he came back too early. We've seen this all the time with guys where they get hurt, and like look at J.K. Dobbins when he came back the first time, and he had like a little hitch in his giddy up. Like, you see things. He just doesn't look right to me. He looks like tired a little bit more. Like he couldn't be out on the field as much as you'd want him to be, even if he was ready, because like he looks like he's getting gassed a little bit more after like a couple plays. So I don't know if it's a conditioning thing. It just doesn't look right. And I said it on the show, like in tournaments, like chalk Javonte. Well, you want to play a guy like Javonte when he's going to be unowned in tournaments, not when he's going to be 15 or 20%. I thought it was like for cash. I understood it because it was the price tag. It was the matchup. You just kind of roll with it. But in tournaments, I thought he was a bad tournament play just because he just doesn't look right to me. And the offense doesn't look right either. I thought he'd be getting peppered more with like short passes from Russ, and he's just not. Like, he's not as much. So that's one thing I took away. I hope it gets better though, because I got a ton of him in best ball. So best ball's looking good, but I got a ton of him. So
hopefully he's healthy, and like when he does come back from this injury, like he comes back like ready to play.
I hope they even if it's minor, I hope they give him like as much like a week more than what he would need to fully recover, because it just looks off to me. So
I didn't love him. I mean, if I loved him, I would have played him on both sides, because I mean his price was attractive on both sides. You just kind of wanted cheaper running backs on FanDuel because the cheap receivers were pretty bad compared to the high end receivers. Like, you had Josh Palmer here at 4K, which is a great play. Like, Josh Palmer is up to 6.1 on FanDuel. So,
I thought Josh Palmer seemed like a cash lock.
I mean, and Josh Palmer was honestly in play for me at 6.1 on FanDuel. Like, that's how much of a pricing discrepancy I had this as.
What was Adam Thielen on FanDuel? I can't remember. Was he 68? What was he?
Yeah, he was super expensive. He was not.
Okay.
I think DeAndre Hopkins was one. I just hate the Titans passing offense. He could have had.
That's why I didn't get the Chig thing. I didn't get the Chig thing. Like, the Titans offense, it's going to run through like mainly two guys. And yes, Westbrook-Akina caught the touchdown, whatever. Like, D-Hop, Derrick Henry. If you're not playing those two guys, I just would. On a main slate, it's different on a short slate or a showdown slate, obviously. But on a main slate, when you got 12 games to go through or whatever, 13 games, whatever it is, like those are teams you just want to be very limited in your exposure to them. My opinion anyways. Was there anything else on this team? I think you pretty much hit it perfectly.
No, I mean, it zeroed out. I think I made about 40% return on investment here. So I ended up doing pretty well for how much it was trained. I would like to point out game selection is a huge thing here. When you get these massively trained teams, the single entry double up, the cash line was 141 points. And in the multi-entry double up, the cash line was 168 points. So, just be very, very cognizant of what you're entering and like where you're putting the team. Like, if you're entering an 11-person double up, maybe check to see the names. And if some of the better like say 8 of the 8 players and they're all elite players are sitting in it, you might not want to play that game. I would always gravitate towards single entry double ups as opposed to the multi-entry double ups. And on DraftKings, I love trying to find the 50-50s. They really bury them because they don't make as much rake on them in the lobby, but you can get like a couple $100 down easily in the 50-50s. It's just a better proposition than paying like an absurd amount of rake in like some of these double ups. So
yeah, that's a good call right there.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of
50-50s.
people that played my team might not have had the return on investment that I did on it, simply because I've turned into a huge nit on DraftKings about game selection, just because a lot of these games end up being like not great games, even for like a professional player like me.
Think about it though too. Like a lot of people playing cash, they're probably only playing like maybe a couple $100 at most, right? So like
Yeah,
you could probably find that in 50-50s if you like search hard, like you're
yeah,
saying.
it's
Like,
the single entry double ups and search for some 50-50s and then play some head to heads. Would be, how I would approach it. Like if I only had to get down $100, but I'm trying to still get volume while not putting myself in positions that I don't think you can win in long term. So, I mean, FanDuel, they just spawn 50-50s. It's the best. I just click every single one of them. On DraftKings, you have to be it's a little more work intensive to enter games there. I've turned into a huge nit about it just because I think there's situations like this. Like, I mean, you're paying a low rake on this game, which is what makes it fine. I mean, I still made $200, $250 on this game, but when a team is, and to me, this team was fairly obvious. When it's going to be trained like this, your upside is super limited, and I hate being on trains like this, but I didn't really see any way to get off of it very easily.
yeah. Yeah, no, it makes sense. Definitely game selection is key. I think, people don't even realize it too, how key it is. And thought you made some good points in breaking it down. And, if you're trying to allocate, $100 or something into cash games every week, it's not a bad idea to just, stick to 50-50s, a few head to heads, the single entry double ups, like you find those.
And it's okay to
contests.
play some tournaments too.
Yeah.
Like I think about 15% of my total action is in like, and I try and enter like the flatter payout structure tournaments, like not like the ones that are like, say, $300,000 total prizes with 100,000 to first. Like I'd probably try and enter like a 300,000 with like 50,000 to first, and like it pays out much deeper. It's much better to enter a cash contest in that type of tournament. So yeah, I mean, I enter tournaments just in case, like my cash team on FanDuel, if I went Diggs and Puka, like that would have played in tournaments 100%. Because I also allocate,
sure.
like if I know, I knew I was going to be on that Justin Fields Cole Kmet build with about, I think I made my final decision with about 20 minutes to go. This DraftKings team I made with like 2 hours to go, and I was debating FanDuel for a while. I ended up on that team, so I tried to enter some riskier games at the end, like because I knew that it was going to be off market. Like no one was playing Michael Thomas, no one was playing Cole Kmet, and I had them listed on the cash chart for us. Because
think about this.
Michael
Thomas. I just want to say one thing. Think about this. How bad is Jameis Winston that they rolled out Derek Carr being clearly not 100%?
Yeah.
And should not have played. How bad is Jameis Winston?
Michael Thomas would have been like a lock for me if Kamara was out. I still thought he was a good play because, he was going to be checking the ball down the whole game. Fun fact, Kamara had the least receiving yards in NFL history for someone who had over 10 catches.
Yeah, 13 catches, 33 yards, I think, is something like that. So that doesn't shock me at all. The man had 13 catches, somehow scored like 21 fantasy points while getting 33 yards receiving on 13 catches. I think he had like 50 yards rushing or something like that. But like, yeah, that was insane. That's crazy. Derek Carr shouldn't have played in that game, clearly, in my opinion. But Jameis Winston just must be horrible or something like that, because they trotted him out there anyway. So we'll see on that. Also interesting, I know I keep coming back to the Giants. The Giants play the next 2 weeks. They play at Miami and at Buffalo the next 2 weeks, and one of them is a Sunday night football game. Please, God, flex that game out of the Sunday night football spot and put another game in there. I don't need to see the Giants on prime time in Buffalo against Josh Allen. I don't want to see it. I know it's Dayball and his old team and blah, blah, blah. I don't want to see the Giants. I'm done watching the Giants. Put them at 1 or 4 o'clock for the rest of the year, and I will try to not watch as many Giants games as possible on my TV screens, or I'll put it like in the bottom corner TV, the one that I look at the least, or something like that, because I don't want to see it. This is horrible. They're going to get killed. I mean, Miami's coming off a loss. Miami's going to win by 50. I don't want to see that, but that's another fun fact there. All right, real quick, because I think we did a good job reviewing the cash and stuff like that. Any other takeaways from like a team perspective here? Any teams that you saw where you were like kind of shocked from players or their roles, decrease, increase? Anything you saw that was kind of shocking to you?
A-Chain outsnapped Mostert, which I thought was pretty interesting. Like he's definitely insanely talented and
60-40.
Use him. Yeah, he's not a flash in the pan. I think that was one of the ones I wrote down.
I thought Khalil Herbert in a close game getting like 70% of the work.
Dominated the backfield. That backfield.
That shows that when the game is close, they clearly still lean Khalil Herbert. But when the game is like the first couple weeks where it's kind of out of hand early, they're going to rotate more. So it's kind of almost game dependent based on how the game's going. But I think that showed at least that like Khalil Herbert can still be in play if you think the Bears can hang around in certain games. You know what I mean? Like if they're playing, Buffalo and you think they get killed, well, he's probably a bad play, right? But like if you think that they're playing a team like Denver who sucks, maybe a Carolina or some other team, and you think they can hang, well, maybe Khalil Herbert is a better play. So that's just something to maybe keep in mind that I noticed as well. The Achane thing's interesting because Mostert's looked incredible, but Mostert is older. He's been in the league like 10, 11, 12 years, something like that, which is insane to me. So clearly he's older. Jeff Wilson's coming back. I don't know if it was like, man, Achane looked good in the first game we played him, so I want to see him play a little more and pull back on Raheem because Raheem's gotten a lot of work up until the first 3 weeks, and they're like, we need to, pull him back a little bit to keep his legs fresh for the, the playoff run and stuff like that. Because they're clearly a team where they're planning, to be there in the playoffs and stuff and in the end. So I don't know if it's something like that, or it was like Achane is just looking too good and, man, we can't pull this guy off the field because he does. I mean,
yeah, I'd probably say it's going to be about a 50-50 split moving forward. I'm not projecting a big role for Jeff Wilson at this point just because, these two backs have looked so good. And, you could see it turn into like a three-way committee like the Chiefs. Speaking of which, I think Pacheco might have taken the lead in that backfield. With his
he definitely did last game.
Yeah, he took the passing game role. He had all the red zone work. So that's a super valuable role if he can retain that. I've seen this shit with the Chiefs enough to not try and not base it off of one game sample. But if that's something
looking at the numbers,
though,
60% of the snaps, Pacheco got, big amount of the rush share. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire was not involved at all. He got 6 snaps. Jerick McKinnon got 22. Pacheco got 42. So clearly they're phasing out Clyde Edwards-Helaire a little bit. And, obviously because he sucks. He's terrible. He's been bad for the last couple of years, and they know it. They knew it last year, and they phased him out. And McKinnon's better than him at the third down role, so he's not taking the third down role from McKinnon. They clearly like McKinnon, obviously, as the games get more towards the playoffs and stuff like that. So his role maybe could cut into Pacheco a little bit when they get later in the season. But I think right now it's Pacheco in that 55 to 60 range, and I think it's going to be almost Clyde Edwards-Helaire phased out with McKinnon that third down role. So
yeah,
I think Pacheco's
if you're trying to target the Chiefs, it's almost impossible to target their receivers right now. Outside of like a showdown slate, if you want to target the Chiefs, it's like you would really love to target a running back, so it's not just Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes. So
they're the easiest team to Kelce, Pacheco on main slates, Mahomes. If you want to play any of them, I think it's fine. I think the rest are just Jerick McKinnon will have his game, right, Bryce? He'll have his game where he somehow catches 2 touchdowns and, he's on a winner randomly. But I think that's just so hard to predict. Maybe in games,
I think in bigger games where they really need to win or they're trailing.
Like if they're playing in Miami or Buffalo or something like that, right? Yeah. Like they could be down and trailing and stuff like that. So that's another thing, I guess, to keep in mind. Also, Detroit, Jahmyr Gibbs, not it. He's not. Nope, he's not it. David Montgomery is it in that backfield. They clearly trust him. They do not trust Gibbs yet. And I don't know when they'll trust Gibbs, but
so much for playing him in the passing game. I think Mark and I have him in the 50K best ball, but thankfully our running backs are stacked because we hit Kyron late.
That's huge. If you got Kyron,
Brian Robinson's been good for us.
Yep, he's another good one.
What's it called? Kenneth Walker's been good for us. So
you're running back, sir.
Yeah, because we lucked into. Well, we took him on St. Raw and Devontae first 2 picks, so we just tried to load up on some running backs after that, and then hit some late, and we hit both running backs late, so that's kind of made up for the Gibbs bullshit.
Yeah, your running backs are stacked. Even with Gibbs, your running backs are stacked. So those are honestly, 3 of the better running back values. If you just look at where they're going in those best ball drafts, those are probably 3 of the best. I'll throw Achane and Mostert in the value section too, just because of where they were going too. Those are probably 5 of the best value running backs that you could get, and you guys have 3 of them so far.
Yeah, so, and I thought we were a little weak at running back to start the season. But, that's turned out pretty nicely. We need a receiver. We need a third receiver on that team. We kind of drafted Dotson as it. He's been awful. Mooney's been awful. We have some.
It looks like Chase Claypool might be on his way out, so maybe Mooney gets a little more.
If they fucking throw the ball to him, last game was the first game he's really gotten some opportunities. So not to talk basketball, but
it's fine. There. We talked enough about the slate. Obviously, guys, if you want more of the content, get over to Run Pure Sports, get all the content. Baseball winners today, 2 p.m. Eastern time. Big T, DC, and Holden will take you guys up to lock talking playoff baseball. So make sure you check out all the content we got. I saw the bet side. Big T already posted all of his bets for baseball today. And then JBC came in and posted all his bets for baseball today. So if you want all the winners, we got the winners over here at Run Pure Sports. Sign up for the bets package. Get all these winners here because they're firing. They're firing every day. There's a bunch of bets. It's a great time. We got a bets channel too. Get in the Discord. Make sure you're in the Discord. You have the notifications up and ready for those channels. The Bets Picks channel and the Premium Plays, where you get all the picks notified right when they get posted. It goes right to your phone or your computer, wherever you're on Discord, and you'll get those things right away because they've been hot, and hopefully they continue to be hot for baseball and going forward, college football and all that stuff. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. Hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we'll see you guys next week for the weekend review. For Bryce, I'm JSU. Good luck in all your contests here. We're out. Peace.